time, and I started playing piano when I was about 5 or 6, I think. It was a long time ago. So one of the fun things that
we're gonna go back just a second. Our audio just started.
Oh no.
So we're gonna go back and say hello again. And welcome to our Des Moines Symphony Orchestra at-home family concerts. We are presenting these on the last Sunday of every month.
Cool. My name is Renee Brechtel. I am a teacher at the Des Moines Symphony Academy, a violin teacher. And one fun thing about me is that I started playing violin when I was about 3.5 years old. What about you?
I started playing the violin when I was 4 years old. My name's Amanda Drish, and I also work for the Des Moines Symphony and Academy. Renee, what are we going to do today?
We are going to be playing music from all over the world. We're also going to have a lot of fun, show you some instruments. What else are we going to be doing?
We're going to be showcasing some underrepresented Black composers too. And you'll see when they pop up on the video, we have some pictures for you that you'll see where they're from too, which is all over the world. So we're very, very excited. And we can almost get ready.
I think so. Grab your shakers, grab any instruments that you might have, any homemade instruments that you might have. You can use shakers. It could be anything, even like a box of, what are they, spaghetti noodles? Like dried spaghetti noodles, if you want to do that. You can play along with us, have fun, sing along with us. We want you guys to join us.
We really do. And that also means that if you ever have any questions, just pop those into the comment box below. We look forward to hearing your comments and answering them live. Our first performance is going to be Zingaros, and it is by Joan Alcaraz from Barcelona, Spain. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right.
You'll notice I'm on the piano, which we didn't mention that, but I started the piano when I was 5 years old. And Renee, what about you? When did you?
I also play the piano, and I started playing when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah, so we both played 2 instruments all the way into our adult life, which is super fun. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
There you go. That was Zingaros from Spain.
The next piece that we're going to play for you guys is by George Gershwin. He is a famous American composer that wrote a lot of really recognizable tunes. This one, your parents might know. It's called Ain't Necessarily So. Super fun. Did you guys enjoy that? We sure did.
We really, really did. What's next? Let's check our list. First of all, do we have any questions in our comment box? Not yet. Don't forget, we love your comments, we love your questions, and we want to hear from you. So comment below.
Now, speaking of questions, we actually do have a question from one of my students that I am teaching right now. His name is Peter. So Peter, if you're watching, check out your video.
Which instrument plays low notes or high notes?
Thanks, Peter, for that question. He asked, which instruments play low notes and high notes? We're going to answer that question in just a minute with some pretty cool instruments that we have to show you. Now, we've got one other question that's kind of similar. Let's hear that other one.
I want to know about a violin and how it works.
All right, so that question was from Adeline, and she asked, what about a violin? I want to know about a violin and how it works. So, how about a violin and how it works?
Let's talk about that. So, let me grab mine first. My first question is, what do you think a violin's made out of? Is it made out of Legos? I don't think so. I don't think it's made out of Legos. Miss Renee, will you show them the inside of a violin?
All right, you guys ready? This is what the inside of a violin looks like. If you take off the top, like Miss Amanda's, and you look just inside, does it look full of wood or is it empty?
It does look empty. So a violin is made out of wood. Wow, which means that somebody cut down some trees and then they handmade this, which is really, really cool. And what's even more interesting about that is that our instruments can last for years.
Hundreds of years.
My instrument was made in 1944, all the way in Germany. Where was yours from?
Mine was from, actually, you know what? Mine's kind of interesting. I don't exactly know where mine's from, but people think that it might be from Hungary, somewhere in that area.
Very cool. So that's how an instrument works. So what happens is you have the back side, the top side, and then there's this little thing on the inside which holds up the middle. That's called a sound post. And then when you pull the bow across the string, this is a fun angle. I like this. The string vibrates and goes down through this guy here. If you know what it is, shout it out loud. What is this? Right there. If you said a bridge, you're right. Renee, do we have some examples of other bridges for different instruments?
We do. So this is the bridge that you just saw from Miss Amanda. This is the violin bridge. Now, I'm going to show you a couple others, and let's see if they look the same. This guy. Whoa. And then, are you ready? There's this guy. Whoa. Look, it's as big as my face.
Is it still a bridge? Is it a bridge for a violin?
This one, I think so. Let's see. Ooh, I don't think so. No, too big. What about this one? Is this one the right size? Nope. Nope.
What are they for, Renee?
Well, this one is to a special instrument that has a long pin in it that sits in the ground, and you have to sit down to play this instrument. I think we might have one here that Miss Amanda's going to show us. It's called a cello. All right, so she's grabbing the cello, and while she's grabbing the cello, there's one of our cellos that we have here today. Now, Miss Amanda, that's one of our cellos. Let's see. I think there's one more that we have.
Here it comes. Oh, this one is, whoa.
Isn't that crazy?
What's the difference? Who's this cello for? Is this cello for a teacher? Or is this one for a teacher? This one here. If you said this cello's for the teacher, you're right.
You are right.
Who's that one for?
This one is probably for a student who's about 5, 6, 7 years old.
Yeah. What do they sound like, Renee? Does a big cello sound different than a little cello?
I don't know. Why don't we check it out and see? All right, here we go. So here's a little cello, how it sounds.
Let's see if the big one sounds the same.
Were those the same notes?
Sure sounded like it, I think.
Let's play them together and see if they match. See if they match, you guys. Ready? Go.
They're a little out of tune, but for the most part, they're the same strings,
Which means that they're the same notes.
Very cool. So what you might notice is that this guy's louder. Is this guy louder because it's bigger or because it's smaller? I think it's because it's bigger.
Well, you said bigger, you're right.
So we have a big cello and a small cello. Renee, do we have a small violin to show our friends?
Let's see. Ooh, I've got one. All right. This side here.
We have so many instruments, it's like a jigsaw puzzle trying to pick them up and put them down in the right spot.
All right, are you ready? I'm gonna start up super close, and then you'll see how small it actually is. So here's the little violin. Whoop! Look at how tiny it looks on me.
So Renee, we decided that a big violin or a big cello and a small cello have the same notes.
Yeah.
Does that mean it's the same for a violin?
Should we check?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
1, 2, ready, go.
Did they sound the same to you?
Sounded the same to me. They must be the same notes. How interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so one thing that you noticed is that we always have this doodad to make sound. Because does a violin or cello, we forgot one of our other friends. Oh, do you want to go grab that?
I'm
while
gonna
I
go
do
get
this?
it. Okay.
So one thing is does a violin make sound all by itself? Let's see. I don't hear anything. Do you? We could strum it like a guitar. That's called plucking, which is really cool. But what makes the biggest sound is this guy here. It's called a bow. And what do you think a bow is made out of? Let's see.
What's that white stuff?
We've got wood on top. That makes sense. What's that? Some people think it looks like a rubber band. Some people thinks it also looks like wood.
Some people think it looks like a bunch of strings.
It does look like a bunch of strings.
It's none of those.
Especially, okay, first of all, raise your hand. All the kids, raise your hand like this. Say, I promise.
I promise.
I will not do what Miss Amanda is about to do.
What Miss Amanda is about to do.
Promise? Big promise? Okay, so it's not rubber bands. It's not string. It is horsehair. Look at that.
Whoa.
Whoa. Don't worry, it's not broken. I can put it back together. But only bow doctors and like the really good violin teachers out there, Only they can do what we just did. So it is made out of horsehair. And don't worry, they just get haircuts like you and I do. Doesn't hurt. Well, we missed somebody. We missed a member of the string family. Well, technically two of them, but one of them is not visiting us today.
So another member of our string family that also plays with a bow that's pretty long. It wasn't actually near her face, don't worry. But see this one, Miss Amanda, will you hold up your violin for us?
Sure.
There's Miss Amanda's violin. Now, let's see if these guys look like they're the same size. All right.
A little bit.
A little bit. Do they look exactly the same? Ooh, now you can see, look, one's peeking out the back. This one's peeking out because it's a little bit bigger. Does anyone know what instrument belongs in the family in between a violin and a cello? There's one right in between. Who knows what it might be?
It's a viola.
Yep, if you guessed viola, then you're right. So a viola we hold it like a violin, but it has strings like a cello. So the strings are lower. They're in between the sounds of a violin and a cello. Here is what the viola sounds like. Can you hear how it goes lower than a violin?
Sure does. Miss Renee, this is perfect because our next song that we're playing is going to be with two violas. Are you ready for it? Coming up, Renee. I'm ready for it.
All right. Now, while we're getting ready for this, I saw a fun question on there from Graham that said, what is your favorite instrument?
Oh, my goodness.
Oh,
That's
hard to choose. What do you think, Amanda?
Well, for me, I really like playing the violin because it's the one I practice the most, so I'm the best at playing it, honestly, out of all the instruments that I play. But my favorite one to listen to is definitely the cello. I love the cello.
Yeah, I also love playing my violin. I love playing my piano too because I can play notes with two hands on the piano, but I also love the sound of the cello too. All of our string instruments are so beautiful, which is why I like our string family. The best out of the orchestra, I think.
Yeah. This is just our personal preferences, though. I also, at one point in time, used to play the French horn and the trumpet. So it's possible, once you learn one instrument, to play lots of different instruments because you'll learn the basics. You know, it's kind of like math or learning how to color inside the lines of a coloring book. Once you learn how to do that, you can pretty much do any kind of artwork, right?
Yeah. So another kind of instrument that you actually have inside of you is your voice, which is pretty cool. A voice is also an instrument that we just own. You own your voice. So one of the things we're going to do today is we're going to play a song that you guys will probably know, and I bet you could sing along to. Should we show them what song it is?
Yes. I'm going to let Miss Renee demonstrate this one. Did you know that song? If you said row, row, row your boat, you are right. So we're going to play a game here. You need to divide at home. So somebody is team 1, viola 1, and viola 2 is going to be me. So let's practice. I want you to sing. If you decided you're 1, I'll give you 5 seconds to figure out who's going to be viola 1 and viola 2. Viola 1, viola 2. Okay, ready? If you're viola 1, sing with Miss Renee. Here we go. Merrily, 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 life is fun. My turn. If you're viola 2, sing with me. Here we go. Gently down the street, merrily, 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 life is fun. I think we can put those together.
Now remember, we're going to kind of mix them together a little bit. So if you're following me, make sure you're watching Miss Renee. That's me. If you're going to follow Miss Amanda, make sure your voice follows Miss Amanda's viola. Here we go. I'm viola 1, so I'm going to start. Ready?
Ready.
Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go! Woohoo! All right. Were you able to follow us? I hope so. All right, we're gonna switch our instruments out here real quick.
Thank you for your patience with us switching some instruments. Now would be the perfect time for you guys to put some questions in the comment box.
I saw one more question a little bit ago. It was from Faith. Faith asked, was it ever hard for you to learn violin? You know what? That's a really good question because learning an instrument is a lot of fun, but it's not always easy peasy. Sometimes it is kind of hard and I have to do some work to make sure that my fingers do what I want them to do and my hands and my arms do what I want them to do. So sometimes when I played violin, my teacher would tell me, put your elbow down. And I had to think about, where's my elbow? I gotta put it down. So sometimes it's a little bit hard, but I still loved it. What about you, Miss Amanda?
Same here. It was one of those things where I found out after a while that the more I practiced, the easier it was to play any of the instruments I've learned. So that's one of the things where violin or any instrument that you're learning is ever difficult. I promise, and this kind of, it might sound silly because I'm a teacher, no, but if you practice, it will get easier. I promise. I also say the same thing. So the last song we played is called Around. And Around is where we copy the same song just a little bit later. Now we did that with a really well-known song called Row, Row, Row Your Boat. And the next song we're going to play does the same thing. It's just a little bit more complicated. So I encourage you to see if you can hear the round, otherwise known as a canon, in our next piece called Gavotte.
All right, another fun thing, Gavotte was by Martini. So this is called the Martini Gavotte, but in the music world, sometimes we nickname it Martini Forgot because it goes around and around and around, and sometimes we forget where we're going. So should we make sure that we watch our music and each other?
Absolutely.
Okay, here we go. All right, that was so fun. Did you guys hear the different parts that were the same, but they started at different times? I sure did.
Our next piece is by Ignatius Sancho, and we've got a really great picture of him coming right up.
All right. Ignatius Sancho was born on a slave ship off the coast of Guinea, West Africa, and was taken to the Spanish colony of New Granada in South America. He was 2 years old when he was actually brought to England. So he was best known in England as a public intellectual, which means that he was a very smart man. He published many letters about abolishing slavery. Abolish means to get rid of something that we don't want. So he was a man of many important firsts. He was, get this, it's super cool. He was the very first Black composer in history to ever have his music published. He wrote songs and he even wrote a book on music theory, which is how music works. He was the very first Black person to vote in a British election, and when he died, he was the very first Black person to have an obituary in the newspaper. Pretty cool.
Very cool. Very interesting man. So the piece that we're going to be playing is called Duchess of Devonshire's Reel, written in 1779.
All right. So that was such a cute little song. I really, really liked it. What's next?
What's next is Merry, Young, and Fair. That is an it's an Irish air, which means that it's a little bit slower. Really pretty. Don't forget, questions in the comment box. After this song, I'm going to come up and check the comments to see if there's anything in there for questions. If you feel like dancing to this song, feel free to do so. Maybe grab somebody in your family and let them swing you around.
you feel so calm. Oh, I love it.
All right, let's check to see if we have any comments. All right, we're gonna pop up there and do that. Pam, Greta, Sue Ellen. Ooh, there are lots of great questions here. Let's go with, what are your favorite songs to play from Sam and John?
Ooh, favorite songs to play. Well, you know what? There are so many songs I love to play. Goodness. Some of my favorites, let's see. That's a really hard question because there are so many that I like.
I'm going to go with the style that I like to play.
I was going to say.
I like to improv on my violin, which means I like to make stuff up. And I like to make stuff up with friends. Some of my friends play the guitar. Some of them play the electric bass. And some of them play the drums. So then I will improv on my violin. And that's my favorite. My second favorite, probably the Celtic music that we're playing, and also the new music that we've learned by the Black composers. Those are some of my most new favorite pieces that we're playing.
Yeah. Some of the pieces that I really enjoy playing, I love all that kind of stuff too, because I love making up music on my violin and piano and thinking of songs that are in my head and seeing if I like them played out loud. So improvising. And one of the things that I really like is playing pieces with my students. So some of the classical music that we play and that I get to teach my students, I love playing with people, and it's so much fun to play with all the kids that I teach.
We're going to answer one more question here before we go on to our next piece. Bretta would like to learn about the string bass. Now, the string bass is a very, very cool instrument. We actually showed you that bridge.
Yeah,
this guy. It is probably at least double the size of the cello. Now, if you remember, the cello stood at about my height. And to be fair, I had it extended via an end pin, which I'll show you in a little bit. The bass is really big.
Way taller than I am.
And you actually play it either standing up or sitting on a really tall stool. So the cello, which we played earlier standing up, is not technically how you play it. I'll play it for you here in a little bit so you actually get to hear what a full song sounds like on the cello. But the bass sounds a whole octave and then some lower than a cello. So it is the lowest stringed instrument in the string family.
Yeah.
The strings are massive. Yeah. They're really big strings.
Your fingers have to become super strong to play the string bass.
Yeah. Most people who learn how to play the string bass start on cello, right?
I think a lot of them do.
Yeah.
They're very similar.
Kind of like how the violin and viola are similar too.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Our next piece is really, really important to us. We would like to dedicate the next piece to the memory of Elijah McClain, a young Black violinist, and all those who were taken too soon. This piece was written by Felipe Gutierrez y Espinosa of Puerto Rico. It's called La Despedida, which means the farewell. Felipe Gutierrez y Espinosa was the first classical composer born in Puerto Rico. Another Black composer from Puerto Rico, from our selection today. Music was so important to him, and music education was so important to him, that he also ran a free music school so that he could teach and share music with anyone who wanted to learn. Again, this is La Despedida, the farewell. And again, this is in memory of Elijah McClain and all of those who were taken too soon.
All right, wasn't that beautiful? Okay, so we're going to pick up the beat a little bit with some more music from the Jigs, Reels, and Hornpipes. It's a book all with Celtic Irish music. And what's the first one that we're going to do?
And we are going to do King of the Fairies. It's literally like musical chairs, musical stands.
We're playing different parts and have different books.
It's good. Here we go.
All right.
King of the Fairies, an Irish hornpipe, a little bit more upbeat.
Here we go. All right, our next piece is also one of our pieces from the Jigs, Reels, and Hornpipes. I just have to find it real quick.
That's Maggie.
Yep, it's Drowsy Maggie.
And we've got another set change. So while we do that, Miss Renee, will you go check to see if there's another question?
I will do that. All right, let's see. Find my way across our maze of instruments here. Okay, so Sue Ellen asked, how long did it take you to learn the violin? Ooh, so back at the very beginning when we just first started, yeah, we both started playing the violin and learning the violin when we were 3.5, about 4 years old. Both of us did. And let's see. So I've been playing the violin for over 20 years, and so is Miss Amanda, which is pretty crazy. And there are still things that are new, brand new that I'm learning, which is pretty cool. But if you wanted to learn how to play the violin, find a teacher in your area. Go to the Des Moines Symphony Academy and check out the different programs that we have where you can learn how to play different instruments. You can start at just about any age. Usually about 4 years old is a good place to start. You can also start when you're 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10.
Or an adult. I'm going to throw that in there because this instrument is new. Do you guys remember what it's called? The cello. And when I say it's new, I mean that it's new to me. And that for a while I've been playing things like I'm going to tell you the truth. I started really practicing when I was 30 years old on the cello. But that also means that even as an adult, if you guys started when you were little or you have no musical background whatsoever, it is 100% possible. And we love teaching adults to start music at any age. And I am the perfect example of learning how to play the cello in your 30s.
Yep. I have taught kids that are 4 years old. I've taught adults that are the same age as me. And my violin teacher growing up has even taught an adult who was in his 70s. He was like a grandpa. Your grandma and grandpa could learn how to play the violin. That'd be pretty cool.
I currently have a teacher or a student who is 52 and he's a truck driver and he practices every single day.
Pretty cool.
Very cool. Anybody can learn. The next piece is called Drowsy Maggie. This is a piece that's been one of my personal favorites that I learned probably when I was 12 years old on the violin. So I'm excited to do this. Here we go.
All right, ready?
Ready. Here we go.
Super fun.
Love it, love it, love it. All right. Our next piece is called Morpeth Rant. Set change. And it's another one in our textbook.
Here, you're on this side. Actually, I'm in a good spot, but you do need an instrument.
So does anybody know what it means when two people play something together? Anybody know? Is it called a duple? Nope. Is it called a double? Nope. It's called a duet. So a duet. Two. Duet.
Whoa.
Duo. Duet.
All right, ready?
I am catching my breath. It's nice and hot in here.
We've been playing a lot of music so far. Hope you guys like it. Here we go. Those are some of my favorite songs to dance around to and wiggle.
All right, we are going to go on to our next piece, and we're going to show you a picture of this next composer. Her name is Francisca Gonzaga. So here she is. All right, Francisca Gonzaga, really interesting lady. She wrote her first composition when she was 11 years old. Shakira is from Brazil, another Black composer. And let me just clarify, composer means somebody who writes music, just like an author, somebody who writes books. So, Shakira, excuse me for the mispronunciation, she wrote over 2,000 pieces in her lifetime. That is so many. Can you imagine 2,000 individual M&Ms? That's a lot of M&Ms, and she wrote that many pieces. That's amazing. You'd have a stomach ache on a sugar high if you ate that many M&Ms. So we'll just play the music. One other really amazing thing that she did. She was the first woman in Brazil to conduct an orchestra. And that is the person who does this in front of the orchestra.
They're the leader that everyone kind of looks to make sure that they're keeping up with everybody.
Playing on time. All right. This piece is called Ballada, written in 1884.
All right, super sweet. I love pieces like that. Now, we almost missed it, but there is actually another video question from a young lady named Elena that's going to come up here in just 1 second. So, Elena, what was your question?
Can a trombone play loud?
All right, Elena asked, can a trombone play loud? Now, a trombone is a wind instrument, brass instrument. Yes, they blow wind in order to play. Sorry, all of you wind and brass players out there. It is a brass instrument, so it's metal, and they can play very loud. You probably don't want to be right in front of them when they're playing. But as you learn to be a musician, you learn how to play loud and soft, gentle, and big and bold. So if you're a really good musician, a trombone can play loud and soft. But in an orchestra, a lot of the time they do play loud because they can. So that's a little bit about brass instruments. They often will play wonderful loud pieces because it's super cool that they can do that.
I was just checking to see if we had another question. Don't mind me just being like, oh, hello, not doing much up here. Okay, we have 2 more pieces left for you. So if you have any last minute questions, we're going to play one. We're going to check the comments below. Again, type. If you have any questions. And then we will check, like I said, before our very last piece to close out our concert. So, there we go.
All right, so last bit of information about our last or second to last piece here. It was written by another wonderful Black composer who was actually blind at birth. His name was Thomas Green Wiggins, and he was born blind and born as a slave in Columbus, Georgia. But he became one of the most famous American entertainers of the 1800s. Pretty cool. Now, a little bit about him. He was only 4 years old when he first started learning how to play back music that he heard. He didn't know how to read music yet. He heard it and he thought, oh, I remember what that sounds like. And he would go and do it. Now, by the time he was 8 years old, he was actually performing public concerts around all of Georgia, which is pretty cool. By the time he was 11 years old, and get this, you guys, by the time he was 11 years old, he was already so famous that he became the first African American to be invited to perform for the president at the White House. Super cool. Have any of you guys ever been there? He also wrote his own music and often used a bunch of musical effects that mimicked sounds that he heard, like the sound of rain or wind or even a sewing machine. He wrote a piece that tried to sound kind of like that. Isn't that kind of cool? This piece is called The Boy with Axles in His Hands, and it was written in 1866. Dance along if you would like to with us.
love that piece so much. What a wonderful composer. Before we jump to our last song, we're going to go ahead and look at a couple more questions, but I do want to give credit to the compilation of these pieces by Black composers. This book, I'm speaking off the cuff right now, this book is Music by Black Composers, compiled by Rachel Barton-Pine. You can find these books on sharmusic.com. They're really, really wonderful. They have all the bios in them. There's a coloring book and there's a timeline as well. So I just wanted to give a shout out for the compilation and presenting these underrepresented composers in a beautiful, beautiful representation in this book. So thank you for doing that work.
All right, so I'm checking out our chat here to see some questions. And one question that we have not answered yet was from Graham again, and he asked, who invented the violin? Ooh, that's an interesting question. I think it's actually up for debate, which means that no one knows the first person that actually created the modern violin as we know it. Correct me if I'm wrong. You guys can do your own research. Check out Google for that. But there are some really famous violin makers, some of which you might have heard the names of. One famous name of a violin maker was Stradivarius. So I think it's Antonio Stradivarius. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but so Stradivarius was one. Another famous violin cello viola maker was a man named Guarneri. That was his last name. Those are two violin makers from Europe, Italy, and a lot of I believe that the violin originated in Europe, in that area of the world, but now it's all over the world, which is pretty cool.
It's one of those things that with violin makers, they all have their own special signatures. So all the instruments that are made by a specific person all sound a little bit different. Violins throughout the years and cellos and violas, they also change shapes and sizes as well. So it's really interesting if you guys were to go online, you can look at the history of how the instruments were made. And they have changed quite a bit to the modern instrument that you see now and recognize so easily within the symphony orchestra. So again, before we conclude, we have our last piece. We want to thank you so much for joining us on this kind of muggy but really beautiful Sunday afternoon. I know we had a blast playing with you, playing for you, with you. If you got your shakers on, if you were dancing, you're playing with us too. Sing along. Our last piece is one that's near and dear to my heart. Partially because I started learning about this composer when I was very, very little because of my wonderful piano teacher. The composer of this piece is Scott Joplin. Scott Joplin was born in 1868. He's a Black American composer and pianist. He achieved fame for his ragtime compositions, and that's what we're about to play, and was dubbed the King of Ragtime. During his brief career, he wrote over 100 original ragtime pieces, 1 ragtime ballet, and 2 operas. So, very, very interesting man. Let's see, we do have a picture of Scott. Wonderful. Thank you for showing that. So, this is the entertainer. Oh, originally, oh my gosh, I wanted to show this to you. Where did my book go? The ragtime. Oh, that's okay. That's all right. We're going to go ahead and play it. I had a picture of the original cover of this piece. And just so you know, it was originally written for piano, and Rachel Barton-Pine from our book has arranged it and edited it for 2 violins. So there it is. All right, we're ready to entertain you with the entertainer. Here we go. That's great. Thanks. thank you so much for joining us. This is your Des Moines Symphony and Orchestra at-home family concerts that happen at the end of every month.
Cool. It was so nice to play for you guys. Join us next time for more fun music.
Absolutely. And don't forget, if you have more video questions, we'd love to feature you at our next family concert. Have a wonderful week. Tune in next time. We'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone.